It's Teresa Weatherspoon, better known as Teaspoon, and you're watching Real Fans, Real Talk.
Live from the can. Vibe you can.
This is Real Fans, Real Talk. Real Fans, Real Talk. We as real as you thought. Real Fans.
What's going on? Welcome to another live edition of Real Fans, Real Talk. I'm extra excited today, man. Me and Eric been talking about some things. I'm extra excited, but that's for later on. We got a whole lot of sports to get to this week. Good friend of ours is going to be stepping back in the ring on Netflix. Excited about that. Football season is in the mix. NBA season is going full throttle right now. But before we get into that, let me introduce my co-host, my brother, Eric Sanchez, a.k.a. Legend in Two Games. What's going on, man?
What's really good, bro? You know, let's get to it, man. We had a great week of football. The NBA, we got to get into Major League Baseball free agency. I know you don't want to talk about Juan Soto, so we won't get into that too much just yet.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, we gotta. It is probably, I mean, outside of Canelo's fight earlier this year, this is probably the biggest boxing event of the year that we have coming up on Friday.
I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Going down on Netflix, is live on Netflix, which is different. I'm excited about that. I like how they had the Chris Rock. The Chris Rock special live. And then that was like the first live thing they did. And then now we getting boxing live on Netflix, which is different. But I like it. I like the expansion. We need sports everywhere, so now we're getting it.
I agree, and I think it's a great opportunity. This is one of the things we'll save the boxing talk till we get there. Let's get to some more important things that are going on right now.
Yeah, definitely. Let's start with the NFL. Let's start with the Chiefs, man. Patrick Mahomes, Mr. Mount Rushmore. They just keep winning, man. They just keep winning. The Kansas City Chiefs keep winning, and you know, you and I have been giving the defense their praise, but this week, you know, the defense, you know, that special teams defense blocking that field goal to save the undefeated streak for the Kansas City Chiefs, man. We really got to tip our hats to these guys. You know, this is all again stemming from that Tyreek Hill trade, and where everybody's like, wait a minute, you about to trade maybe the best wide receiver in football at the time. And the Chiefs have not missed a beat. They've actually gotten 1,000 times better, because what we're seeing from the defensive side of the Kansas City Chiefs is what's really been holding this team down. They don't give up much points. They play the run well. They play the pass well. Obviously, special teams is doing their job. And the Kansas City Chiefs are undefeated still. And Patrick Mahomes has not played like the Mount Rushmore quarterback that we know he is. Obviously, you know, missing parts throughout the way. Pacheco gets injured. Then every receiver they signed in the offseason got injured. But he hasn't been playing like MVP level Patrick Mahomes, and they're still winning, and they still look good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point to start off, as you mentioned, because when they made the trade of Tyreek, people kind of questioned, well, will Mahomes still have success? And Mahomes still carried this team those seasons after that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That didn't change anything. They still won 2 Super Bowls. But now, as you mentioned, as the rest of the team has kind of grown, and all those draft picks and those young defensive players they selected, who have now grown and been through the wars of being part of a champion, now they're starting to carry Patrick Mahomes. And in the NFL, and able to have long-standing success and be consistently good, you have to have balance, as you mentioned. For years, everybody talks about Brady as the face of the Patriots, but they always had a pretty good defense, and they found ways to get the running backs they needed. And obviously, Gronk getting drafted into the mix and finding the right guys. And that's what Kansas City has done now. I love the balance of this team. This is why when we talked about early in the season, could they three-peat? I said the biggest difference between them and other teams that try to three-peat was just how good that defense was becoming, because they were so young. And there is no substitute for having the type of playoff success. When you have rookie cornerbacks who win a Super Bowl, and then in their second year, you win another Super Bowl, and you've been through the battles and having to play tough road games in Baltimore, in Buffalo, you know, nothing can test you for that next challenge other than actually being on the field and being tested. So I think now you're seeing the growth of that team. Chris Jones is probably the best player on that defense. He's the veteran in that defense. But you cannot overlook the contributions of that secondary and those young linebackers now that are now turning this into a really, really good defense under Steve Spagnuolo. And as you mentioned, Mahomes hasn't looked like the MVP. When he needs to make the throw, he always does. We saw last week when they got into a little bit of a shootout, he steps up, and DeAndre Hopkins now, another week under his belt, getting more comfortable with that offense. You know, the Chiefs are in great position right now, man. It's not just being undefeated. They continue to find new ways to win. You try to slow the game down, they'll react to it. They're going to get Pacheco back pretty soon. So now they're starting to get healthy. And low-scoring game, high-scoring game, defensive battle, it doesn't matter. Champions find a way to win, and that's what they keep doing.
Now, my next question to you is, and we kind of spoke about this last week, the Buffalo Bills, they are hot right now.
Yeah.
Do they stop the streak at home in Buffalo? This is going to be a big matchup. I figured they would have moved it to the to one of the primetime spots because the Chiefs are still undefeated, and then this is going to be a big game. Two of the top quarterbacks in football going head to head. Can Buffalo stop them? Can they stop the streak?
Buffalo is a different team, and we've seen that pretty much from when they fired their offensive coordinator last year, and they became a little bit more run-oriented. So I think Buffalo has a legitimate chance. If you're Buffalo, though, and Buffalo has had some regular season success against Kansas City because they have beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They just can't seem to beat them in the playoffs. But the significance of this game right now is in the win-loss column, Buffalo has 2 losses. Obviously, Kansas City's undefeated. If Kansas City wins this game and has the tiebreaker along with you have 3 losses, you're not catching Kansas City for the number 1 overall seed. And you're not even going to catch them probably for the 2 seed. They're going to have these tiebreakers over you. So if you want to beat Kansas City in the playoffs, I think you have to win on Sunday. You have to make this race for the number 1 seed interesting and give yourself a chance to play at home, because we know Arrowhead has been one of the worst scenes for Buffalo. They got blown out there in their first playoff game there. The second game will live in infamy forever. The 13-second game where Mahomes leads them down the field and then they win in overtime. And if you're Buffalo, I know people will say, well, they lost in Buffalo last year. But that's probably your best chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, is to play them in Buffalo playoff time as opposed to having to go to Kansas City. So this game, I think, means everything to Buffalo. If you're truly a Super Bowl contender, if you want to take the next step, you have to win on Sunday. And to your point, Trip, the only reason it didn't get flexed out, this is one of those in the beginning of the season when Fox and CBS kind of bid on the games. This is one of them that they bid on. It's the 4 o'clock game. Even though it's in Buffalo, it's a 4 o'clock game for a reason, because Romo and Nance will be calling that game. So CBS had already highlighted this as one of their marquee games on the calendar. Yeah,
and I agree. Buffalo right now sitting at 8-2 in second place. If you want to have a chance at getting that number 1 overall seed and making sure that Kansas City has to come to Buffalo in the playoffs, you're gonna need this win, because right now sitting at 8-2. I mean, you're still going to need a little bit more help from some other teams throughout the rest of the season, but you can't lose this game, because now you're talking about going. You guys be sitting at 8-3. It's a hell of a lot harder to come back from 8-3 when they're undefeated than if you guys were 9-2 and they have that 1 loss on their belt. Because I do feel like once Kansas City gets that first loss, I think they'll probably finish out the season around like 3 losses. So now you're talking about Kansas City has 3 losses. Now you're in the mix. Now you got a chance to kind of come in, steal that home field, especially when you have the tiebreaker over these guys. So Buffalo, shout out to our friend of the show, Nesta, over at the Hot Seat podcast. They're gonna have to do their numbers this week in order to have any chance of getting home field throughout in the playoffs, because the Chiefs ain't stopping. Nobody.
Yeah. If you're Buffalo, a couple of things I'm gonna be paying attention to. Right now, the opening line on that is Buffalo favored by 2.5. For anybody that's paid attention to the show, you should know this. We always talk about never bet against Mahomes. Historically, Patrick Mahomes is 12-1 when he's the underdog in a game. When the betting line is not in their favor, he is 12-1. So the great Michael Jordan meme, Mahomes is gonna take that personally. They 2.5 point underdogs. He gonna take that personally. But you're right too. Buffalo, you got some work to do. You got to handle your business here. The division is pretty much wrapped up. It's crazy to think that we're in week 10 and the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 5 games up in the division. Nobody's chasing them in the division. That's done. Yeah. So that's checked off the bucket list. The AFC East goes to the Buffalo Bills. But another thing I want to remind people, the only real challenge that Buffalo had this season in terms of like playoff caliber teams was that Ravens game where they got embarrassed. They lost 35-10 in Baltimore.
Yeah.
The human element of this is you can't get blown out by the Chiefs at home. Because if you get blown out by the Chiefs, then you start to question yourself, like, are we even on the level of some of these better teams? Because if we played the Ravens and they did what they did to us, and now we play the Chiefs, who we know we ain't beat in the playoffs in years, and they do what they do to us, are we even on that level now?
And there's a good chance that we see that happen. So
right, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I say the significance of this game for the Bills is psychological. There's a lot into this. It's bigger than just, oh, it's a marquee matchup against Kansas City. If you're the Buffalo Bills and you know 3 of the last 4 years the Chiefs have ended your season, they've been the team to beat you. They've done it in Arrowhead. They've done it in Buffalo. Now, yes, the East is yours. You got the East. You're 8-2. You're in position as the number 2 overall seed right now. But either you're the number 2 seed that's nipping at their heels, or you're the number 2 seed where there's a major gap between y'all two. And Kansas City reminds you again that they still run things. Buffalo, this is a major, major game, I think, for the Buffalo Bills, for their psyche and for their season. Yeah.
I'm gonna just because we're talking about the number 1 seed in the AFC, I was gonna go to Dallas, but I'm just gonna talk Baltimore, Pittsburgh next week, because that's going to be another marquee matchup next week that's also going to have playoff implications. Obviously, the Steelers continue to win. Russell Wilson came back. It was an easy transition. But now they face Baltimore for the first time this season. I believe it's also their first division game this season as well. 2 questions. Who comes out of this game victorious? And whichever team does come out of this thing with the W, how much of a chance do you give them to come in and steal the number 1 seed?
Well, the winner of this game will be 8-2. Well, the Ravens could be 8-3, or if the Steelers win, they're 8-2. So put you in position. Ravens, obviously, we know they don't have the tiebreaker. The Steelers don't play Kansas City this year, so they would have to beat them outright. There's a possibility if Kansas City loses this week, because as you mentioned, I think once Kansas City loses a game, they do. I thought, they play that division this year. Yeah, they do play that division. If they beat them, they got them late in the season on Christmas Day, actually. The second game of the season. Mm-hmm. But if the Chiefs lose this week, they're not thinking about undefeated, and late in the season, don't be surprised if they even rest a couple guys just to make sure they're ready to go for the playoffs, because number 1 seed doesn't mean much to them. For Pittsburgh, it could mean a lot. We know that environment in Pittsburgh is very great for football come playoff time, with the towels waving and with the weather and the elements you throw in there. In terms of this game Sunday, I'm going to give it to the Ravens. I like them in this game. They're favored by 3.5 points. I don't know if I'm going to take the points and the gambling aspect just because of division rival at home as an underdog. I think most times that's where you should lean. You should take the points knowing that they're rivals, and that's going to be an emotional game. But I like the Ravens in this game just because Pittsburgh, even in their wins this year, they start very slow. And you saw it against the Commanders yesterday. They start slow. They're losing at halftime. They make the adjustments. The biggest thing with the Ravens is I don't think you can afford to really start slow, because we know if they get the lead, they can rely on Derrick Henry to kind of, bleed out the clock and really wear you down and play ball control offense. So for the Steelers, I think it's the opposite. I think the Steelers want to start hot and then themselves rely on Najee Harris and Warren and run the ball and slow the game down from the Ravens. The only thing that worries about the Ravens, and this is why I say I probably won't lean towards the points with the Ravens, is we know about some of their fourth quarter collapses. Yeah. And the Steelers this season, again, they're a team that they will lose the first half and win the game. I think they've done it like 4 times already this year, where they've been losing at the half and made the adjustments and won the game. So the Steelers won't ever be out of it. Mike Tomlin won't ever be out-coached. I expect this to be a very, very close game, but I'm leaning towards the Ravens because of their ability to run the ball.
Yeah. Obviously, you see what I'm wearing today. And I appreciate you.
I got to ask you.
The purple do-rag on today kind of makes me feel like I'm writing what I'm saying right now.
You already know.
But I think the Ravens do get this W here. As far as being able to steal a first place spot, honestly, I feel like the Steelers, if they won this weekend, would have the better chance just because they do play Kansas City later in the season. So I would actually give them a better chance than Baltimore to get the first place spot just because they would have one less loss in the win column. But they will need help from Buffalo this week to if they do want to have a shot at that first place spot. But again, they only have 2 losses right now, so it's definitely possible when you play the Chiefs later this season. Obviously, we know Baltimore lost to the Chiefs in that first game of the season, so it'll be a little bit tougher for them. But I am still taking Baltimore to win the game. As long as we get one home field game in the playoffs, I think I'll be good. But I think Baltimore can, with the win here, can kind of establish themselves as they'll get to that number 2 seed. Which, if they can do that, they'll be good because they do have the tiebreaker over Buffalo. So, you know what I mean. So I'm looking forward to that. But I do think Baltimore gets the W this weekend. And then we'll see where things go from there. We try to get the division first, and then we'll worry about everything else. Is Lamar Jackson the front runner for MVP as of now?
Yeah, I think he is. Lamar has been great this year, and I just think that we haven't seen the consistency from anyone else. So when you look around the league, Kansas City's undefeated, but we know Mahomes hasn't played that well. Maybe Josh Allen, but again, if you want to use the debate that when Josh Allen and Lamar went head-to-head, Lamar got the best of him and his team dominated. I'm okay with that. I probably would go that route. I think quietly, though, Saquon should get his name thrown in the mix for what he's doing with the Eagles right now. Because I think the moment that he started to take off, that offense is taking off. And right now, they also have an outside shot of being the number 1 overall seed. If they get there, they're right now number 2. They're battling for their division. They got a big game Thursday night. If they win their division and they can get as high as 2 or even number 1, I think Saquon's name should be in the mix. But I think Lamar should be leading right now and looking at a back-to-back MVP.
Yeah, which is crazy because my top 3 MVP candidates are Lamar, Saquon, and Derrick Henry. Those are my top 3 candidates for MVP right now. The second time he's outdueled Joe Burrow to get wins this season, beating the Bengals twice. Again, going head-to-head with Josh Allen. The loss obviously to Mahomes earlier this season, but neither one of them had a crazy game in that week one matchup. And you're right with the consistency of Lamar Jackson this season. He's just been getting to it. Even in the losses, he's still been very consistent, but he's winning those big games after big games after big game. I mean, what he did last week, the last couple of weeks, realistically, I mean, he's the only quarterback now with 4 perfect rated games. So you can't, you gotta love what Lamar Jackson's doing right now. Let's go over to the NFC for a quick minute. Dallas, they lose badly again. Should they have listened to me at the beginning of the season and take this thing away?
Not at the beginning of the season because there was too much money invested, but now they got no choice. I think early in the season they couldn't do that. Not when you pay Dak what you paid him, and knowing that you were going to have to pay Micah Parsons very soon. You kind of got to try to compete and see where things lie for you. But Jerry Jones is the biggest problem here. They at this point they should take it away. I don't think that they should run the risk of letting CeeDee Lamb play after he hurt his shoulder last week. You're running the risk of something worse happening. Same thing with Micah Parsons. If you're going to invest in Micah Parsons long term, I think maybe you play them through Thanksgiving because I know that's a big day for Cowboys and the stadium. But then I think after that, you got to seriously consider shutting them down. And something that was very telling yesterday, and I think it's going to start to make headlines in another week or two if nothing changes. During the broadcast yesterday, they mentioned that Dak Prescott has been seeking second opinions and he's probably going to be shut down for the year. His hamstring is completely off the bone. He's not going to play. Team doctors already said he should be shut down for the year. Dak Prescott himself said that he was surprised that he was not put on IR, which means to me that Jerry in the front office is holding out hope that Dak can come back. For what reason? Again, I don't know. This is your franchise quarterback that you've invested in. Punt on the season. Understand, take the loss when you got to take the loss, and understand, listen, and even Dak said, I would like to just get the surgery now and start my recovery process because it's a 3 to 4 month recovery time. So that way I could be fully healed by the time training camp and mini camp roll around. But it seems like there's conflicting ideas within the organization where Dallas wants him to get second and third opinions as if he might come back this season. And even if he does, what is he coming back for?
My issue with this whole thing is Dallas is horrible right now. They're most likely they're not going to make the playoffs right now. They're sitting at 3-6. You know, let's just say that can come back in 4 weeks, right? Let's just say he can come back in 4 weeks. Where are the Cowboys going to be in 4 weeks?
Even if they run the slate and win every game, that would put them at 7-6. But right now, when you look at the NFC, the 7th seed in the NFC is Green Bay, who's 7-3. So in terms of wild card, they're not. I don't think they're catching anybody. They're 3 games back with 7 to go, 8 games to go. I don't think they're catching anybody. Trip. I think your stream went out. But yeah, I don't think they're catching anybody, and I don't understand this thinking from the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't see what they're holding out hope for. Jerry Jones, the mismanagement of this organization continues to be at the forefront of everything we talk about with the Dallas Cowboys. And it's one of those things where I just don't – I think it's time that they move on from Jerry Jones having any type of input with where this organization goes. Because like you said, can they catch the wild card team? They're 3 games back of a potential wild card team. Even if they went 4-0, what's the likelihood that Green Bay is going to lose their next 4 games? Green Bay may lose 2 of those, but I mean, are you gaining ground? Are you in position? I don't think they are.
What's the likelihood that the Cowboys win their next 4 games when you got Houston? Then you got to go on the road to Washington. The Giants, they should be able to get a win in because we taking for Shador, so that's neither here nor there. But then that Cincinnati game, if you're telling me that Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase connection is going to continue, what they did against Baltimore on any other night of the football season, with those numbers, they win. They're winning. They're beating any other team. So that Baltimore game, that Cincinnati game ain't gonna be no pushover game. So they could possibly go 1-3. But I think the best they could hope for would be to go 2-2 over these next 4 games. Right?
I think this, yeah.
I think that's the best they can hope for is that they go 2-2 over the next 4 games. But if you go 2-2 over the next 4 games, then that puts you at 5-8. Is it really worth it to try to rush Dak Prescott back? Keep in mind, you gave this man $62 million a year, and if you rush him back too early and he winds up re-injuring himself in to an injury where now he might have to wind up missing the whole season next year. What do you know what I mean? Like now you basically you just killed the franchise for the next couple of years.
Yeah, there's like I said, Jerry Jones needs to be saved from himself at this point. He wants to be the biggest star. I've talked about this all season. He is more than content with this being his show, just so that he can be the guy that the media turns to for these comments. The Cowboys all season, all of this has just been wild. The contract negotiations to now, Jerry landing the helicopter on the practice field. Michael Parsons recently talked about how Jerry Jones allows people to pay for tours through the locker room while the players are in there, which sounds a lot like the shit that Donald Sterling used to do with the Clippers.
Yes. weird. Because, what?
But there's a couple things just from this season, just to show you how bad this season has been. Cowboys are 3-6. We know it's been bad all year for them. It's a massively disappointing season for a team that has the type of roster and salary that they have. They're 0-4 at home, right? In Jerry's world, they have not won a game this year. In terms of point differential,
The Sun was in there.
the Sun, right? Which instead of him, again, this stadium has been built for 15 years. They still haven't figured that part out. Like they don't know the sun. They don't know the sun sets on that side of the stadium.
Yeah,
Every
it's weird.
Sunday afternoon. They still haven't figured that part out. But in terms of point differential, Trip, they are a -82, right? Which means they are consistently getting beat by more than a touchdown. In terms of point differential, the only teams that have a worse point differential than them are the Carolina Panthers, the Vegas Raiders, and the Tennessee Titans.
And they're all horrible too.
Right. But think about the teams I just mentioned, right? There are teams that have 2 wins like the Giants who have a better point differential. The Saints have a better point differential. The Cleveland Browns have a better point differential. The Jacksonville Jaguars have a better point differential. These are all teams that we expected to be bad this year and be at the top of the draft. The Dallas Cowboys at a -82, like I said, you're damn.
I didn't think Jacksonville would be this bad.
I didn't think they would. You're right. Maybe not this bad, but the point still remains. Dallas, nothing is going right. The offense has been bad and the defense has been bad. They've been blown out in multiple games this year. Some of these games aren't even competitive, Trip. Like we know yesterday, 34-6. The Lions beat them 47-9, Trip. The Saints beat them 44-19. These are like, massively bad outcomes from the Cowboys this year.
The Saints beat them 44-19, then went on a 7-game losing
and then went on a 7-game losing streak after that.
Yeah, that's bad for business. You're right, Cliff. Yikes.
You know what I'm saying? The Detroit Lions were running trick plays where the offensive lineman was throwing flea flickers to the offensive lineman.
That's bad. That's bad for business, bro. Yeah. Cliff, you should feel happy. Y'all dog walked Dallas this week. I know Sean's not happy about this one, but yeah, Cliff, you should definitely be happy.
The fact that their season is over before Thanksgiving, that alone should let you know how, like, y'all not even competitive up to y'all marquee game. That's supposed to be your marquee day, and y'all not even competitive up into that game.
I mean, I don't call them America's team, but I'm just, maybe you know why people still say that's America's team.
They call them America's team. First of all, it's an outdated name, but that name started because obviously they had so much success in the 70s. And then I believe it tied into around the time when that show Dallas was around, and they started referencing the Cowboys as America's team because they were the best team during that era. Yeah. But that is so outdated. Again, we're talking about a team that ain't won a Super Bowl in 30 years.
Exactly.
I saw a meme the other day where they was like Donald Trump became president, got convicted of felonies, came back, re-ran for president, won again, and the Cowboys still ain't won no playoff game. They still ain't won no playoff game, Trip, let alone a Super Bowl.
That's out of pocket. That is out of pocket. Let me go back because I want to take Tyson's question. Is it time to start taking Pittsburgh seriously? I think the thing is they're playing well, but to be honest with you, I still gotta say no. I'm still not. I can't just say that about Pittsburgh, because if you look at their record, the record is very good. And again, we always say you can only play who's in front of you, right? But look at the teams that they've played so far, with the exception of Washington, Atlanta, Denver, the Chargers, the Colts, Dallas, Las Vegas, and then both New York teams, right? I just don't think they've been tested. Like I don't think that they've been tested yet for me to say this is a real deal team. I'm not convinced just yet. Maybe if they go in next week and they convincingly beat Baltimore, maybe I'll feel a little bit differently. But as of right now, just based off of who they've played thus far, I'm not impressed.
Well, I think you can be impressed and not view them as a Super Bowl contender. I think those can be two separate things.
Okay.
if you look at the Steelers on their resume, if we looked at the season as their resume, they got to win over the Falcons, who's a playoff team. They got to win over the Broncos, who right now look like they would be the 7th seed in the AFC. They got to win over the Chargers, who are 6-3, and the Chargers have been very good this year. And then they get to win over the Commanders. So that's 4 playoff caliber teams that they've beat. Now, are any of those teams Super Bowl contenders? Probably not, right? But they're good playoff teams. And so, like I said, you can be impressed by Pittsburgh and still not view them as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. This is the week, though, as you mentioned. And I think this stretch of football is really their season because you got the Ravens game, you got the Browns game, you got the Bengals game, and then they got the Eagles in a few weeks after that, followed by the Ravens and the Chiefs. So this stretch of football to end the season is going to be this is their toughest stretch of football right now. And we'll get a better idea as if they're a Super Bowl contender or if they're just a good team that's going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
7-2, unless they completely fall off the table, they're going to make the playoffs this year. But the way they fare against Baltimore in these next 2 games, against Philly, against the Bengals, who they play twice, and against the Chiefs, that's going to let us know if they're truly a Super Bowl contender.
I got you. Let me go back to Cliff's client comment. I'm happy with the way the Eagles have been playing. They got better since the last time I commented on the show how bad they were. You might have to start doing that more often, Cliff. You might have to start calling them out because it helped them out. They have been playing better as of late. They've also – the offense has been healthier as of late because, at that point, Cliff, because I remember when you did comment, I believe A.J. Brown was still out at that point. And A.J. Brown is, one of the best receivers in football, and he is a huge part of that Philadelphia Eagles offense. But also I think they kind of got an identity now on the offensive side of the football with, Saquon Barkley playing like Saquon Barkley that we've all come to know and love, and his dominance over the last couple of weeks. That's had a huge part of it. But Jalen Hurts has been playing well as well because I got him in my other fantasy league. And he's been killing for me the past couple of weeks. He had another 4-touchdown game yesterday against Dallas, 2 running, 2 passing. And he's kind of been having that trajectory the last couple of weeks, and the Eagles have been looking really well.
Yeah, the Eagles, this is the most consistent they've played all year. And I think the offense, as you mentioned, is getting healthy. I think the defense, specifically the secondary, is starting to play better. And this is going to be their toughest stretch because these are the 3 best quarterbacks they're going to face now with Jaden Daniels. They get Joe Burrow after that, and then they get the game with the Ravens and Lamar. So this 3-game stretch for them is going to tell us a lot about their defense as well. But I think offensively they are clicking, and this is the best they've looked all season during this 5-game stretch. And I think it's going to carry over to Thursday because I expect them to beat the Commanders on Thursday as well.
And that's going to be a big game for them because they're fighting for that division still. Mm-hmm. And Washington has played very well this season. So we're going to see what happens in that game. Y'all better not let that young boy set the tone early because Washington is not no joke. They took that loss this past week to Pittsburgh, so they're definitely going to be looking for some get back against the division rival who is also their competition for the division. So be careful. And I see you said wait till they play the Ravens. Clip when they play the Ravens, it's going down. And Baltimore is gonna come out on top of that one because y'all ain't got nothing for my 2-time, maybe even 3-time MVP Lamar Jackson. Action Jackson.
I'm gonna be honest in terms of the Commanders, and I like their team. I love the move for Lattimore, but I don't think Jaden Daniels. It's very underrated move. I don't really think Jaden Daniels has played that well since he got hurt in that Panthers game because I didn't think he played well against the Bears. He didn't play well against the Giants, and yesterday he had some struggles as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles get a lot of pressure and kind of jump out on the lead early on him because I just don't think he's played that well the last couple of weeks. But their record obviously kind of throws you off the scent. The record makes it look as if they played really well, but I don't think they have because they should have lost to the Bears. That was a Hail Mary that was really 2 yards short. If it doesn't get deflected in end zone,
wasn't arguing.
If he wasn't talking to the crowd and paying attention, they probably lose that game. And I thought even when they played the Giants had opportunities to beat them in that game as well. So I don't think they've played that well the last couple of weeks. I think the Eagles going to handle them on Thursday.
Exactly. And you know what? You're right, because even with Washington playing as well as they are, right? So here's the thing. Let's just say next week they go on the road to Philly. They don't get the win, right? Mm-hmm. Then look what they got next. You got 3 games coming up. You got Dallas, Tennessee, and then at New Orleans. So let's you go 1-4, you still in good shape.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Excuse me. If you go 3-1, rather, I should say, because they should have no problem beating Dallas, beating Tennessee, or beating New Orleans, and then you got Philly again. But in the last 2 games, you got Atlanta and Dallas. So realistically, they could go, 5, and let's just say they lost both games to the Eagles, they'd be 5-2. But I think they at least split the series with the Eagles, which means that now you're sitting at 6-1 over that stretch to end the season. That's a hell of a way to end the season when right now, you're at 7-3. So you go 6-1, you finish season 13-4. That'll put you in pretty good shape.
Yeah, they're gonna get to at least 10 wins. They're at 7-3 right now. I expect them to be 7-4 after Thursday night. But then, like you said, down the stretch, they don't really have too many tough games. You got the Eagles and the Falcons are probably gonna be their toughest 2 games down the stretch. And then depending if they have anything to play for in that Cowboys game, that might be one of the situations where you rest a couple starters because they're probably not going to have the bye week. They're going to have to play round 1 of the playoffs. So that would be an opportunity for Dan Quinn to rest some guys. So ultimately, I think 3 to 4 more wins is very possible for this team. If they lose Thursday, though, it will get very interesting, I think, in terms of the division and obviously the wild card.
All right, Monday Night Football. Who you taking tonight? Dolphins 2-6, Rams 4-4. What do you think?
My FanDuel account says I got the Rams at -2.5, so that's who we're sticking with tonight. We like the Rams. Dolphins defense is not that good, though their offense has played a little better recently. But the Rams, this is probably the healthiest they've been, and Matthew Stafford is playing some good ball as well. That NFC West is very competitive. This is not a game I think that the Rams can afford to lose. I think they handle their business. Sean McVay against one of his former proteges and Mike McDaniels. I expect the Rams to beat on their former teammate, Jalen Ramsey, as well.
And let's not forget, I think, the Rams do have that game changer down there by the name of Kyron Williams.
Yeah.
Who has been having a hell of a season. Dolphins, you said they are starting to look better. Obviously, Tua's, every game back he plays and gets under his belt, that offense starts to look better and better. Do they get to where they were before Tua got hurt? That I can't say. But for this one at home, I gotta go Rams over the Dolphins in this one. They playing for something too.
That Dolphin defense has been pretty bad. The last 2 weeks when they faced good quarterbacks and Kyler Murray and Josh Allen, they gave up 58 points in the last 2 weeks.
Now they did get Jalen Ramsey back, or he's back. So I want to see how that plays out. But that defense has been pretty horrible. It's like Tua got hurt and the defense got hurt too.
The defense hasn't been good, and like I said, this Rams offense is very good, and they're clicking. Don't be fooled by the record because they obviously were missing some of their guys to start the season. They had some guys that were injured, but they're on a 3-game winning streak, and they're 3-1 at home. So I like them. That's why I took them. Like I said, I got them at 2.5. I think the line even dropped a half point now, but I like them to win tonight.
All right, let's switch over. NBA. Get a little bit of basketball in. Let me go to. I assume we got a question up here. Hang on 1 second. I'll pull that question up. Let's see. Shout out to Tyson. Tyson says, "What's up with so many NBA players getting hurt? It's crazy. Durant, Chet, Ja, Zion, and Embiid will be back this week." Well, Zion always getting hurt, so I don't even know. That's not nothing new. Technically, Durant kind of does get hurt a lot as well too. And Chet started his whole season off, his whole career off hurt. So I don't know. These are the guys. The Ja is probably the only one that really surprises me is the Ja Morant injury because he's been balling to start the season off. I wanted to give him his props. He's damn near averaging a double-double to start the season off. He looked like he hasn't missed a beat. He's still jumping out the gym like he was before he left, which Ja's young enough to where he should get right back to that. He just had a little sit down timeout. But that Durant injury, I think, is going to be a big deal for Phoenix, who's been playing well to start the season. The Chet injury, I think, is going to be a big deal for OKC, who finally lost their first game. what was that, a night or two ago. I think that's gonna be a huge loss for them. Hopefully he can get back sooner rather than later because he's been playing very well. That whole team has been playing very well to start the season off. But I really like Chet. He got the swag. You know what I mean? He does a little bit of everything. He plays offense. He rebounds. He plays defense. So I really like Chet, and I really like that core that OKC has. So I want them to to do well. So hopefully he gets back faster. I'm over it with Embiid. I'm just over it with Embiid.
Embiid and Zion, this is a normal thing. And Durant, this is every year we know they're going to be injured at some point. I think I even said it to you when you sent me the graphic about Zion, when I said they just save it and they just repost it every year because he's going to be out at some point. Though Embiid, he's coming back now as Maxey just got hurt. So the Sixers, they can't get right at all. They can't get their big three on the court together. The Chet injury was a little bit of a freak accident, and that's I don't tie that into these other guys that have been injury prone. But I think OKC is going to be fine. They'll figure it out. The Zion one, though, what I'm interested in seeing there is the last couple of years when he's been injured, the Pelicans have actually played better when Brandon Ingram is their number one option. And he's a guy that they've been shopping about, a potential trade because it just doesn't seem like it could work with him and Zion. And I wonder if right now the Pelicans are off to a slow start. They're 3-7. If they get going under Brandon Ingram, will the conversation change and will people start to wonder if maybe Zion is the guy who needs to leave? Because like I said, the last couple of seasons, you look back at the numbers with Brandon Ingram, they've had a better winning percentage. Brandon Ingram has been an all-star without Zion. And overall, just the pieces of the team have fit better with Brandon Ingram as the number one guy. Whereas even though Zion is probably the better player and he jumps off the page more, the success of the team has been better with Brandon Ingram.
Well, we're gonna see what they do. I want to talk a little bit more about this Kevin Durant injury and what that's going to mean for Phoenix, who is sitting at the top of the Western Conference right now. Well, a three-way tie, but like I said, the tiebreaker 8-2 with OKC and Golden State. How does Phoenix hold up while Kevin Durant misses these next couple of weeks? Because they have really been playing well together. The chemistry is finally there. I still see holes in the roster, but they came out the gate swinging 8-2. But now you lose Kevin Durant, who's been having an MVP season. Where do the Suns wind up by the time Kevin Durant gets back? Are they still number one seed? Are they down to 4, 5?
Yeah, I don't think they'll be the number one seed right now. Them OKC and the Warriors are all 8-2. I think they're going to fall back a little bit to the pack. This is going to be a tough time for them. Now, maybe Bradley Beal figures it out and gets right and finds his momentum. But this is a team that does not have a lot of depth. We talked about this when they made the trade for Kevin Durant. So whenever he goes out, now a team that already didn't have much of a bench is missing major parts of that team without Kevin there. So I think they're going to struggle. And they'll probably fall back to 3rd or 4th for the time being, depending on how this injury plays out for them. But they're definitely not holding on to that number one seed. I think OKC is far more well-rounded, even without Chet. OKC is a far better team. And I think the Warriors, now that they found a little bit of depth with Buddy Hield and Kuminga coming off their bench, I think they're a better team than the Phoenix Suns as well. So I would definitely expect the Suns to slip down 3 or 4 spots.
All right. Let's talk about Cleveland. What's going on? What's going on? Is there something in the water? Is there something in the water in Cleveland right now? I don't think anybody saw the Cleveland Cavaliers at 11-0 to start the season off. I don't even think most people had them as legitimate title contenders. But you come out the gate swinging like that, that's a first round knockout out the gate, 11-0.
Yeah, that's a fact. Kenny Atkinson has done a great job there. I mentioned it last week that Kenny Atkinson had done a phenomenal job with the Nets before Kevin Durant and Kyrie kind of ran him out of town. But he's done a great job of finding the right balance there with that dynamic guard duo that they have with Garland and Mitchell. And for me, the real thing with Cleveland isn't going to be regular season, because the last 2 years they've been a 4 and a 5 seed. So they've been okay, and they've been competitive in the East. It's really become playoff time. With Donovan Mitchell, they got bumped in the first round, and then last year they lost in the second round. Obviously, Mitch had missed that most of that series against the Celtics. I don't think they would have beat the Celtics even with him. But Right, but it was a gentleman's sweep, and they got him up out of there in 5 games. Now the real question is, year 3 of Donovan Mitchell, can Cleveland take that next step? Can they get to a conference finals? Can they possibly get to an NBA finals? Because that's why you made that trade, to really play late into the season. And I don't know if they're there yet. As you mentioned, I don't think anybody views them as a title contender yet. There's a great story to start the season, but ultimately they're going to be graded on how well they play come playoff time. If they can't advance past the second round of playoffs, 11-0, 12-0, 13-0, they should win tonight because they play the Bulls. So I would expect them to get to 12-0. Doesn't matter how many games you run off to start the season. It matters how long you play in the season later on.
What does Cleveland need to do for us to look at them as a legitimate title contender? Is it a acquisition they may need to make? What can Cleveland do for us to say, all right, you know what? They might be able to mess with Boston. They might be able to hang with Denver. They might be able, you know what I mean? What can they do?
I think the biggest thing is they're going to have to make a decision on their 2 bigs. Obviously, Evan Mobley's the future. You may have to trade Jared Allen to get a little bit more perimeter defense and probably get a guy off your bench. Come playoff time, it just doesn't work with both bigs because that's not how the NBA is played anymore. And when you look at the best teams in the East, they can space the floor, right? You know Boston can play kind of that 5-out offense with everybody around the 3-point line. You know the Knicks can do the same thing. You know Philly can do the same thing if they're fully healthy with Embiid and Paul George. And having Allen and Mobley sounds good until you realize now these guys are pulled away from the paint and now their impact isn't the same, right? You don't want Jared Allen guarding somebody by the 3-point line. That's not where he's best suited at. And so I think that's what's going to be the real dilemma for them. It's why they struggled against Boston in that playoff series. It's even why they struggled against the Knicks 2 years ago when the Knicks were shooting all those threes because the Knicks were able to pull them away from the paint and then create the driving lanes for Jalen Brunson. So they're going to have to probably move on from Jared Allen, get one more perimeter defender and maybe a guy off your bench. I know Karis LeVert comes off their bench and he's a good player, but maybe another guy with Karis off your bench and another perimeter defender to really give you more balance. Come playoff time, you're really going to be relying on like 7 guys. So I don't need 2 bigs. I just need one really good big, which is Evan Mobley, and I need some perimeter defenders, guys who can knock down threes around Mitchell and Garland, because we know those guys can take over a game and get into the paint. I need guys that I know can knock down the corner 3.
Yeah, I think if one of those guys was coming off the bench, probably would be different. But you know, you're paying Jared Allen too much money for him to be coming off the bench. So I just don't see that happening. So yeah, so it may have to be a situation where you move him for a wing. My only thing is, I mean, maybe Jeremy Grant is somebody that could help them out. I know Portland's he's always in trade talk, so he might be somebody that could help them out. But I just don't know who else they could get before by the trade deadline that would really help them elevate to that upper echelon. So
yeah, I don't think it won't be a star play because I don't think they need a star.
That's what I said. Maybe Jeremy Grant might be
right. Yeah. You just need like a couple quality pieces to fill in. But yeah, that's going to be the biggest thing because I think just having the 2 bigs, it's not going to work the further you go in the playoffs. That's why Minnesota realized that as well. That in certain matchups it can help, right? If you're playing the Joker, and you know what, Trip, people don't give us enough credit for that because we said that the way to beat the Nuggets was kind of what the Lakers did a couple years ago when you have the 2 bigs. And people kept thinking we were trying to say, oh, you got to have Dwight Howard. No, we're not saying you got to have Dwight Howard. You got to have that type of roster construction, where you can throw multiple bigs at the Joker and wear him down. But you saw what happened. It worked against Denver. It didn't work against Dallas because Dallas could space the floor and shoot. And that's where you need that roster versatility of like, having 2 bigs may look great against Philly and Joel Embiid. But having 2 bigs is not going to work against the Boston Celtics because they don't throw the ball down into Porzingis in the paint. Everything starts on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So we'll see if they're going to make some moves. But again, right now, shout out to them starting off the season at 11-0. We got to talk about this Milwaukee Bucks team, though. What the hell is going on in Milwaukee? We were tough on the Milwaukee upper brass when they made the coaching change last season. as much love as I have for Doc Rivers, much respect I have for Doc Rivers, I just don't think he is the answer as far as coaching goes in Milwaukee. You make the move, you bring over Dame, hasn't quite worked out. Now I will give you a little bit of grace because Chris Middleton has not been able to stay healthy since they won that championship. And Chris Middleton is a big part of that team because with no Holiday, Chris Middleton is probably your best perimeter defender, but he's not healthy long enough to even really make an impact on the defensive side of the basketball. And then now they look really bad right now. Is there anything as is that Green Bay, that the Bucks can do to turn this thing around?
No, because I really don't think, because they went all in on the Dame trade. And again, another thing that we've highlighted so many times, and I said it at the time, on paper it sounded great. Oh, we get Dame and Giannis. But that's not why the Bucks were losing in the playoffs. If you look back to the year before they acquired Dame Lillard, the reason they lost to Miami in the first round is they could not get a defensive stop. And Giannis, for whatever reason, was refusing to pick up Jimmy Butler as his defensive assignment. And Jimmy was torching him in that first round series. And they didn't need another shooter. They needed more defensive help. And so they traded away their best perimeter defender in Drew Holiday and added more offense. And you saw last year, at times, it looked great offensively, but they cannot get a defensive stop to save their life. This team is old. Brook Lopez is old. Bobby Portis has a lot of miles on him, pause. Giannis isn't 30 yet, but he got a lot of miles on him, a lot of deep playoff runs. Dame is old. The guys that you're relying on, these aren't young legs. And the league is young, Trip. Look at the teams we're talking about. These are very young teams that are competing for championship. This Milwaukee, I think their window is closed. I don't know, Trip. You let me know who on this roster you like, because outside of Giannis and Dame, the third leading scorer on this team is Bobby Portis.
You're not gonna win. You're not gonna win. You're not gonna like that.
Yeah.
And again, I like Chris, Chris, but he's been hurt. But after that, there's nobody else.
Right, but I'm just saying that's what I mean. Like, there's not a move to be made because Bobby Portis is a good player off your bench. He's averaging 12.5 off your bench, but he's your third scorer. Yeah. And it's not like he initiates offense. It's not like we're talking about like a Jamal Crawford type guy coming off your bench. Bobby Portis needs somebody else to initiate the offense for him. Yeah. You don't have those pieces. And when I watched him the other day against the Knicks, the one thing that stuck out the most to me was Dame Lillard's confidence in his shot. Dame Lillard went almost 3 quarters before he attempted his first 3-point shot. And we know that's always been a big part of Dame's game. Yeah. And he was gunshot to shoot a 3. This team does not shoot the ball well enough for Dame not to shoot threes. He has to be the one to shoot threes, because who else you relying on? Pat Connaughton?
No, I'm not relying on him.
I'm just saying, right? Like, right? Like Brook Lopez at this point in his career is a 7-footer who stands around the 3-point line. Yeah,
and he's not even hitting them like there was a point where Brook Lopez was knocking those shots down. Yeah. Not anymore. He's not hitting those shots anymore. So now we come here, and this is we might have to call Scoop B for this one, because I know this is the talk is gonna start happening. It's gonna start heating up. Giannis to Golden State.
I think it's a legitimate conversation. They could not come to terms with, and shout out to Scoop because he would give us more insight on this, but I know they tried to work out a deal with Kuminga in the offseason and it didn't happen. Yeah. So he's the young player that obviously Milwaukee would love to have. And maybe you make the deal with Kuminga, Moody. Maybe you might have to get a third team involved so you can get like some coveted draft picks, because Milwaukee gave away so many draft picks with some of the trades they recently made. Obviously, the Drew Holiday trade, the Dame Lillard trade. Yeah. So they got to restock the draft capital there. But maybe a trade of Kuminga and Moody and get a third team involved to get some draft assets in there makes it work. Now that you got me thinking about it, I'm going to work the trade machine because because it is one of the few landing spots that makes sense. Like I saw the report when they tried to say, "Oh, the Knicks would be interested in Giannis." Knicks don't have nothing to give up for Giannis.
No, yeah, that wouldn't even make sense. Well, not at this point. I mean, unless you're going to trade Towns.
Either that or unless you're going to end up trading either OG or Bridges. But they gave up 4 picks for Bridges. So what picks are they really giving up for Giannis?
Yeah, that's the thing,
right? And I think for the Knicks, even though it hasn't been the greatest start, the Knicks still want this spacing on the floor where they have 5 guys that can operate on the perimeter and make things happen. For the Knicks also, the bigger issue for the Knicks is not Giannis. They need to get their bench back because that was a big part of their success last year. Josh Hart realistically should not be starting on this team. He should be coming off the bench and giving them production there. But they don't have a bench right now, and they're waiting for Mitchell Robinson to come back so they can kind of lengthen out their bench. That's really the thing the Knicks need. They don't need Giannis. They need a bench.
Yeah. They got us. Mitchell Robinson also needs to stay healthy. But that's a discussion for a whole another day. We don't even have enough time.
But if you look up and down the league, I mean, what's the realistic trade scenario? I mean, Miami. I know Miami's going to be in the mix, but I don't know if Miami's going to want to give up Bam Adebayo in a trade.
Yeah, because that's what it would take. Because who are you going to give up?
I mean, Tyler Hero ain't going to do it.
That's what I'm saying. So you're going to have to give up.
Tyler Hero wasn't enough to get. Remember when they were trying to get Dame? Tyler Hero wasn't enough to get Dame, so he ain't going to be enough to get Giannis.
Yep.
So I mean, you're looking there. Maybe Houston, because Houston was in a mix to try to get Durant if he was available. Houston got a lot of young players. Maybe Houston gets in a mix and try to get Jalen Green matched up with Giannis, and you keep Fred VanVleet as your point guard there. Yeah, but there's not many teams I think Golden State is definitely going to be in a mix. I wonder if Orlando would make the push and try to get Giannis and Paolo together, and maybe Orlando says we're trying to go all in.
Now the only thing is, they may have some picks, but who you going? What players would you put in that deal to get Giannis to make
it Orlando?
Yeah.
If you're Orlando. You're probably putting. It's going to be a combination of young players and picks, but in terms of players, I wonder. I don't know if they would want to put Franz Wagner in the deal. He's a good young player. You know, he averaging about 20 right now. He might be the centerpiece of the trade because maybe you do Wagner, maybe you do one of their young guards, or maybe you do Wagner, one of their young guards, and then you just load up with draft picks. Yeah. Because I mean they love Cole Anthony. He's big off their bench for them. Jalen Suggs, they love Jalen Suggs because of what he gives them defensively. He's a great on-ball guard. A little bit of offense too, but really he makes his money as an on-ball guard. But I mean, then again, you sign Caldwell Pope, so you can trade Suggs. Maybe you do Suggs and Wagner.
If you bring in Giannis, you might.
That's what I'm saying. You might say, look, we're gonna go all in. You know what Caldwell Pope gives you. You Suggs, Wagner, and picks.
Yep. Yeah. You might have to do that. We're gonna wait and see. Let's get into this boxing talk before we get ready to get up out of here. It's going down live on Netflix. Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. But the real main event is Bruce Shoo Carrington versus Dana Coolwell, 8-round featherweight fight. Brooklyn is back in the building. Who you taking in both of these fights, Eric?
I mean, you know, it's always going to be hometown. We going Shoo to win, okay. and I hope, you know, Shoo's gotten a little bit of slack from his last performance on ESPN, so I hope he comes out and puts together a great fight to kind of remind people. Because you know how fickle boxing fans are.
Come on, this is the BS, Eric. Because when you said Shoo was putting cats out early enough for you to go with some big reservations and get dinner, nobody was happy with that. So now the fights, you know, have them go a little longer. Now they got a problem with that. There's always something. At the end of the day, Shoo is going into this fight undefeated. And he's going to walk out of this fight with another W on his belt. And his fellow Brownsville, Brooklyn native, Iron Mike Tyson is going to get the W in his senior citizen years when he probably shouldn't even be in the ring boxing anymore. But I love Iron Mike Tyson because that's Brooklyn, and he's going to take it too. Brooklyn going to be 2-0 at the end of the night, man.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I don't know what to make of the fight, to be honest, because I think it's great for the sport no matter what. And I think Jake Paul definitely deserves his credit for bringing a fight to Netflix, because that's the other thing too. As fight fans, we are fickle. We complain about the prices of the pay-per-views. We complain about what networks is on. Oh, I got to download that app. Well, everybody got Netflix. So you ain't got to, you know what I'm saying? You ain't got to worry about finding the fight. You know where the fight is at.
Yep.
I also love the fact you see it in the opening promo. Katie Taylor, Amanda Seriano, their rematch, which was a classic the first time in Madison Square Garden. They get it on again. So this is another opportunity for the world to see the two of the best women fighters in the world go at it.
You know who the best is.
That's why I said two of. You saw I corrected myself, right? I said two of the best. I corrected myself. But
Quote.
I still have this feeling that Mike might have 3 rounds. And if it goes past 3 rounds, then I think the youth plays out.
Yeah, man, he is twice his age. But see, this is what my fear is, that Jake Paul gonna run the first 3 rounds to just try to tire Mike out as much as possible, and then just try to linger around. Because I don't think he knocks Mike Tyson out. I don't think he has that in him to knock Mike Tyson out. But if it goes distance, it's probably gonna be in Jake Paul's favor.
I think that I wouldn't say he doesn't have the power to knock him out. I think if fatigue plays a factor, then yes. Because when you're fatigued, that's when you make mistakes as a fighter. Yeah. And so that's why I think after 3 rounds, it's a major advantage for Jake Paul. Because at that point, Mike has not had a serious fight in what, 20 years. I'm not counting the Roy Jones fight.
Yeah, he hasn't, but I think because, again, we've watched every one of Jake Paul's fights, and even though, you know, the time he lost to Tommy Fury, but
he knocked him down late in that fight too.
Yeah, but he hasn't been in the ring with someone who has that kind of knowledge and experience of being in the ring like Mike Tyson has. So Mike Tyson could kind of, even if it does go later, he's smart enough, and his, you know, he understands boxing in a way that none of Jake Paul's previous opponents have that level of knowledge or ring experience. So he could possibly still finagle it if it does go later. But honestly, I want to see Mike Tyson knock him out.
Yeah, I mean, if Mike beats him and knocks him out, I think it'll be great either way. Because Jake Paul is not doing this to be a world champion. He can say it all he wants, but we know that's not the path he's really trying to take.
Get in the ring with nobody that's in their prime.
Well, not only that, because he's not gonna take the path of knowing that he's got to fight 5 or 6 credible fighters before he gets a world title shot. He's making too much money doing it this way anyway. Like, why would you do it the other way?
Exactly.
Right? Because when he's the couple of legitimate boxers he fought, nobody paid attention to. Nobody watched those fights. So
because respectfully, they were nobodies.
But that's my point. That's also part of the journey, Trip, right?
Yeah.
For you to, like, right now, most of the guys that Shushu are fighting are not household names.
No.
But that's the journey that Shushu has to take to get. And Jake Paul is never going to circle back and do that, because what point does that prove? I'm making too much money already.
And he doesn't need to be the champ.
That's not. He just needs to be the name. He just needs to be the name.
Exactly.
As long as he's the name and he's the brand, people will tune in, and he will make a lot of money. He's making a lot more money than a lot of boxers out here right now. So
a lot of people, period.
Not facts. But that's why I say, like, I'm not sure how this, like, the narrative of this all plays out, because if Mike loses, I don't think it doesn't change anything for us. We know Mike is damn near 60 years old, right? It's like, all right, we know for a fact you wouldn't have done that to prime Mike Tyson. You just catching him now, right? You catch him now, 60 years old. But now,
if he knocked Mike Tyson out in the first 3 rounds, then I might give him a little props on that. But I just don't.
Because remember, keep in mind too, that Mike has never been out cold. I mean, you know, the Buster Douglas fight, you know, he gets knocked out, he loses on the 10 count. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You're right, but that's my point. Mike has never been embarrassed in that way. Mike has lost fights. He's been outclassed. Lennox Lewis outclassed him. Evander Holyfield outclassed him, but they didn't knock him out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying.
But on the flip side, I wonder if Mike finds that glory for one night and, like I said, knocks him out, what does that do to Jake Paul's brand?
Honestly, I don't think it does anything, because I think that people are gonna, like, you're gonna have the people that are gonna say, "Well, it was Mike Tyson."
Nah, I think it affects his brand a lot, because he could lose to Mike. I don't think anybody would be mad if he lost to Mike.
Well, I guess if he gets knocked out by
If
Mike,
he gets knocked out, right, that changes the brand.
That would.
That changes the brand completely.
That's kind of what a lot of people have been watching for, because a lot of people have the same sentiment that we do, whereas you're not fighting credible boxers.
Right.
So, yes, if Mike Tyson cleans up Jake Paul, knocks him out early in that fight, which I don't think it can happen, but I just don't think Jake Paul is going to stay anywhere in the vicinity of Mike Tyson for him to get knocked out. I just don't. I think he's going to be running around the ring, which he should, because you got to use your strength to your advantage. And one of those strengths is you're half Mike Tyson's age. You should have the stamina in this situation, and you know he's going to wear down and be tired a lot faster. So if you stand in there with him the first couple of rounds, you'd be a damn fool, which is why I don't think that Mike Tyson knocks him out in those first rounds. I want him to. I hope he does, but I just think he's going to be dancing around the ring trying to get Mike tired.
I think the way I see it play out is Mike is going to land a big shot probably in the second round. He's not going to knock him out, but he's going to land one of those shots that get the crowd going crazy.
And he's going to keep running after that.
And then, I think Jake Paul will use his legs. He'll use the height advantage he has, and he's going to try to wear Mike down. And then later in the fight, when Mike is worn down, you'll see Jake Paul get a little more active. But I think the overall feeling coming out of this fight is going to be Mike Tyson was old. He got gassed. Jake Paul won. But more importantly, Jake Paul, I think, is going to leverage this fight to really have other big-name fighters want to go at him now. That's what I think he's going to do. Because, again, it's not about the journey to become a world champion, because we know that's not what this is about. This is about putting on the biggest pay-per-view opportunities for his promotional company.
Making more money.
Right. This is about money. This is about him showcasing Amanda Seriano, who is under MVP Promotions, because she fights as the co-main event on every one of his cards now. So there's, like I said, great cross-promotion by him as well for his fighter. And I think that's what's going to be the overwhelming narrative coming out of this, that it was a good event. We got what we wanted out of it. We had flashes of the old Mike Tyson. The younger fighter ended up winning, which we thought was going to happen. But more importantly, other big-name fighters are going to say, all right, now I want to fight Jake Paul.
Yeah, and I want to say this, too, in regards to Shushu. I really love this for Shushu, because this is going to do so much for his brand. He's already ranked in the top 10 right now in the ESPN rankings in the featherweight division. But as far as his knowledge of his brand and who he is as a fighter, this is going to do so much to help elevate Shushu. We've been saying he's going to get the title shot very soon, but I think he gets that win, especially if he gets one of them early knockouts that we've come to know and love from Shushu. That's going to do so much for his brand. We talked about Jake Paul's brand, but that's going to do so much for Shushu's brand. So I'm excited for him. I cannot wait to watch this fight this weekend. Shout out to Jake Paul, though, because at the end of the day, he is breathing new life into boxing. As much as I still want to see Terence Crawford in the ring, I want to see Tank and Shakur go at it. I want to see Canelo, whoever he's gonna fight next. This is a different outlet. It's what Jake Paul is doing. This is like how dominant battle rap is. Like you got hip hop, and you got battle rap, but battle rap is kicking butt all over the globe. That's what Jake Paul is doing for boxing. It's something different because, like you said, this ain't about a title, but what he's doing for the sport of boxing, you got to respect it at this point.
You have to, because again, he does not have to fight. And one of the greatest lines in boxing is from Marvelous Marvin Hagler when he goes, "It's hard to get up out the bed at 6 a.m. and train when you sleeping in silk sheets." And we know Jake Paul got that. So for him to still want to be motivated to train and fight, listen, you got to be already a little psychotic to be okay with just getting punched in the face over and over. And then to do,
I might.
No, but it's one thing to get punched in the face one night. It's another to keep coming back. I'm like, the check cleared and I'm still coming back to fight again.
Yeah. I'm gonna take my $40 million. It's gonna be a one and done.
Right. Jake Paul, the check is clearing and he's saying, let's do it again. Let's run it back again.
And not only is he saying let's run it back, he's saying I'm gonna get into the ring, even though he's older than me, with one of the most dangerous men in the history of the world. Mike Tyson.
Did you see the recent interview that Roy Jones did where he talks about that?
The fight that they had?
Yeah. He talks about the fight and he said his cornerman was like giving him advice, like, you gotta shoot the uppercut. He was like, I'm not shooting the fucking uppercut. Because if I hit Mike with that uppercut, I know what it's going to trigger in his brain. And it's going to trigger a different. So he said, I'm going to send you the clip. He said, that's why when you watch the fight, I kept jabbing and my corner kept saying, shoot the uppercut. I'm not shooting that uppercut. Because where his brain goes, where his brain goes to that place, I'm not trying to see what happens next. So I'm just going to play it safe and I'm going to shoot this jab all night. And like you said, it's a different mindset. If Mike goes into that place mentally, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't. And remember, Mike has forgotten more about the sport of boxing than Jake Paul's even learned. Mike been in his
experience and knowledge.
Mike's been in the game for 40 years as a student. Remember, he got with Customato when he was 14.
Yeah.
He got 40 years of boxing knowledge. So there's going to be things that he does in the ring that Jake Paul ain't never even seen.
Because you haven't been fighting guys.
Right. You haven't fought long enough. So that's why I say the first 3 rounds, I expect us to be like, yeah, that looked like Mike right there. My only concern is that when the adrenaline starts to wear off, and again, this is your first fight in like 20 years, when the legs start to get a little heavy, that's when you know, like, all right, now you've gone to the point where your body probably just wasn't ready for this. Not that Mike can't do it, but when you haven't done it in so long, your body just can't snap back and be ready to go 8 to 10 rounds. It's not the same thing.
I'm gonna give Jake Paul a little bit of advice though. You know how, like, you think you're getting a little older, you start feeling yourself, but Unc be outside still.
Yeah.
Uncle wash you up. Don't go into this thing blind. Mike Tyson will wash you up. He definitely will. So I would advise you to make your game plan to be running them first couple of rounds and don't get rocked, because if Mike Tyson catch you, there's a good chance he's gonna knock you out. And that's gonna be the end of this thing. It's gonna be night, Jake Paul. You got to get over to WWE and join Logan and try to make it happen over there. Maybe you could join the Bloodline or something.
Yeah,
I don't know. But Eric, let's jump into the final third segment, man.
As always, shout out to the followers and the supporters. We greatly appreciate it. What else we got? Tune in Friday night. We back with Friday Night Live. Shout out to my brother Will Gordon. He had to have an emergency procedure, so he's recovering. I spoke to him the other day. He's doing good, but he is resting up. Yeah, he's resting up. So we hope to have him back this Friday, but if not, he'll be back soon. And guys, be safe out there. We're approaching the holidays, man. Don't get crazy. Don't do nothing dumb. It's a new administration coming in, so we got to tread lightly out here. Let's be smart. You see some of the new things that's coming down the pipeline already. Pause. Be smart out here, and just be safe.
That's a fact. I'm gonna just say, Brooklyn, man, let's go shoot, get that dub, and keep doing what you're doing out there. With that being said, make sure you guys are following us on all our social media: Instagram, Twitter @RealFanTalk, Facebook.com/Real Fans Real Talk, and of course, subscribe to that YouTube channel, YouTube.com/For the Fans Productions. And don't worry, if you're not in New York City and you can't watch us on Verizon 43 Thursday nights from 8 to 9 p.m., you can still watch us from anywhere in the world. Just go to that website right there, realfansrealtalk.com. Click the red button on the home page, and you can watch from anywhere in the world. Oh, and I know y'all probably already, but don't forget, if you haven't, subscribe to the 2 of the best podcasts out here, Real Fans Real Talk and the Sanchez Show podcast. We the best thing moving, and we got some real big surprises coming up for you guys soon. So please stay tuned. For myself, Trip Young, and my brother Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in 2 Games. We're up out of here. Peace.
Enjoy the games tonight.
Yes, sir.
This is Deion Grant from the New York Giants, Super Bowl champ, and you're watching Real Fans, Real Talk.
Live from the can. Vibe the king.
This is Real Fans, Real Talk. Real fans, real talk. We as real as you thought. Real fans.